What's going on, Javi Lobby? It's your boy Javier with the Javier Show. Make sure you say it twice. I had a great conversation with Bobby Feeno. You might know him as Arian Foster on his Twitch network. We had a great conversation that lasted for 3.5 hours. So I decided to break it up into a four-part series, something that you could all enjoy and digest. We talked about the black community. We talked about Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, what it means to be a black conservative, what it means to be a black progressive, what are some of the policies that we care about. And we just went deep. It got very philosophical, political, and a little religious. So we talked about all of those things. So that's what it's all about. So if you're new to the channel, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this video at least twice. Now, let's get into the conversation. Yeah, man, what's good with you, man?
Can't complain, man. Still walking, so I can't complain, brother.
True that. I was just reading your tweets back and forth with David Silverman.
That's an interesting cat, man. That's for sure.
Y'all are going at it, boy. This been going on for days and days.
Nah, I was only like 4 or 5 of them, but like it's just like I don't think he's a very rational human being, even though he says that he is. I just don't think
How
he's
long
rational.
have you known David?
I don't know David at all. I known of him because when I was playing in the league, I was like one of the first like major athletes to come out as secular and as atheist. And so
Oh,
the
yeah.
atheist community, was welcoming, and he was like the leader of, I think, the
The
atheists.
American Atheist, I think.
Yeah, some association. So I think by proxy, he ended up following me, and we maybe had a few words on Twitter here and there. But I never met him. I don't know him.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
that one of my dudes I follow had retweeted him, or quote tweeted him, some shit that he said was like systemic racism doesn't exist, just like God doesn't exist. And I was like, what? That made no sense. So I hit him. I was like, yo, let's have a conversation about it. And that's how that shit show happened.
Yeah, I was actually watching the live feed that y'all had going on. I couldn't
Yeah,
comment because I didn't have the app or whatnot.
gotcha.
Um, I think David is having a hard time explaining what it is he's trying to explain in a sense, and he might be kind of putting his own foot in his mouth on a lot of the issues that he might be touching on. Um, but I'm hopefully we could try to clear some of that up because I had him on my show and we talked about wokeism, and I heard that you said that you were a progressive. You consider yourself progressive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I figured me being a conservative and you being a progressive, we could probably, try to make sense of this whole black issue that's going on right now in America, that's been going on, and kind of see how we both differ in our views on what's going on and see if we can make sense of it.
Okay.
You know, yeah, I'm not
So
really. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's kind of the premise of why we talking. It's always interesting to me to hear from black conservatives or black Republicans. Um, I think, well, I mean, we can get into what I think, but if you don't mind, kind of get into how you arrived there and a little bit of your history, because I watched a couple of your videos just to catch up on who you was, but if you could just get into a little bit of the history of how you arrived there, that'd be
Okay.
great just for people just watching.
Yeah, cool. So I'm not a Republican. I don't consider myself Republican. I am registered. I'm an independent. But I do consider myself conservative. Uh, I haven't been into politics, but maybe a few years, maybe like the last 5 years. But I'm a bookworm, so I'm all about studying and learning different facets of philosophy and history and of that sort. So I'm an atheist. So I throw that out there. My atheism kind of led me into the whole political world. And before I got into atheism, I did 5 years in juvenile. So I was a troubled youth. I did a lot of violence or whatever the case may be. Ended up locked up for 5 years in juvenile detention center. So I spent that time from 15 to 20. I got out when I was 20 years old. So I kind of like that period of growing up when I became a man. I was locked up in juvenile. So I got out. I was really heavily into Christianity, and like I said, I'm a bookworm. So I studied, and then eventually I couldn't make sense of it no more, and I just was like, "Yo, this book, this religion, it can't be true." So I got into the whole atheism thing, and I started talking to a lot of atheists. Started watching, Christopher Hitchens, even David Silverman debating,
Yeah.
religion and stuff like that. Um, but then politics started coming up because a lot of atheists are liberal. A lot of atheists fall on the at least the left side for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
and so politics started coming up, and certain things that liberals were saying didn't make any sense to me. So I started to look into the whole issue. I started to, okay, so we victims. I kept hearing this like, oh, you're a black man, you're a victim. You've been victimized by the system. You've been victimized by white people, and I never recall being victimized by white people. And this is an antidote. This is antidotal. This is not society level. I'm not thinking like that at this moment. But I recall facing 10 to 20 years for armed robbery charge, and I had the highest judge in the Supreme Court that was handling my case, and everybody was saying, "Oh man, you're gonna get the max, man. You're gonna get 20 years, and man. Don't white folks don't care about you." So long story short, I didn't get the full max. The judge took mercy on me and gave me 5 years in juvenile. I've been discriminated against by police or whatever the case may be. But as I started looking to liberalism and conservatism, I seen myself aligning more with the conservative values than I was with the liberal values. And there are certain liberal values that I do hold, you know, um, but I'm not a radical right or a radical conservative type, and I'm not a radical liberal type. I see myself as mostly conservative, but there are liberal things that I agree with.
Right, man. Congratulations for not getting locked up for a long time, man. You know, a lot of time that goes the other way, my dog. But so it's interesting. A couple things that you said. Um, that I hear a lot from conservatives, where they say, uh, "Oh, you're a victim," the victimhood thing. I think that gets misrepresented, right? I don't in America in today's America. I don't think anybody would make the argument that you're in a constant, perpetual state. I mean, there are people that would say this, but I would say that would be fringe. You're not in a constant state of victimization. I don't think that's what that means. I think what I mean by it, what most people mean by it, is that the systems that have been set in place over the course of our history have been overwhelmingly negatively affecting poor and black and brown communities, and that system, unless remedied, will continue to do so. And the fight for righting the wrongs in those systems, you get the pushback from Republicans, you get the pushbacks from conservatives, and so like I'm not a Democrat either, right? I think a lot of the issues that we have in our communities have been perpetuated by Democrats as well. I mean, if you look at what's going on right now, um, like with Trump, right? He's in the hospital with corona, and what are the Democrats doing? It's like, oh, we gotta go high, like we gotta take the high road. Like this is why we're in the position that we're in. Like continue trying to win the campaign, because if the shoes were on his foot, Trump wouldn't give a fuck, right? He wouldn't give a damn. But
You wouldn't
this
give
it's
two
just
fucks.
the Democratic thought was like, we got to take the high road. Like, and I'm not saying be an asshole. I'm just saying run your campaign. Like try to win the campaign. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, so I mean, you said a couple things as well. What do you think? I mean, you said you hold a couple conservative values. What? Because when I think of
Well,
conservative values, I think of Christian
yeah.
values, right? And you're an atheist, so this
Yeah,
is
I'm an
really interesting
atheist.
to me. What values that you hold that are conservative?
Let me touch on the victim part real quick, and
Oh
then
yeah,
we
no,
can
yeah,
jump
we
in.
get into that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would never make the claim that you're in a constant state of victimhood in America. Like you said, I think the whole idea behind it was, if I am a victim, let's say I'm a victim because
Mm-hmm.
of the system, because of the history of slavery, Jim Crow laws, and so forth. I think the most self-defeating thing you can do is tell somebody that they are a victim. Because it gives a person an easy excuse to um, rely on that. and not everyone. There are certain people by nature who are resilient, but there are a large population of Black people who play into the victimhood to the point where it becomes detrimental to their success. For example, I'm pretty sure you've heard this in many cases. Well, the white man don't want you to get nowhere. The white man don't want you to do this. The white man don't want you to do that.
Sure.
But if you put my destiny in the hands of white people, what do I do if the white people don't do the right thing? I have to be able at some point to overachieve regardless if I am a victim. And sometimes that message can be self-defeating, in my opinion.
Well, I mean,
Um,
I think they have good ground to stand on. I'm not an advocate of doing that, but they have good ground to stand
yeah,
on, right? Because
true, definitely.
our communities are overwhelmingly affected by these policies. Our communities are overwhelmingly affected economically, right? And so
Yeah,
I think they colloquial say they give the boogeyman the white man, right? It's like I told David, like I don't think there's 12 white niggas in the room talking about we finna hold them down. Like I don't think that's how it works. But I
yeah,
think they have good legs to stand on, saying like, I can't get a leg up, I can't get a break, and they're right. Like, and this is how the system has been set in place,
yeah.
and so I feel like they have a good leg to stand on by saying that.
They do. They. It's a very legitimate argument to make. I think that some of us rely completely on that argument when there are multiple factors in our lives where racism doesn't play a part, and we use racism as a way to use it as a crutch. You know, like for example, I know family members who don't work hard. They don't work hard. And every time they lose a job because there's something they did, it's the white man don't want me to have nothing. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, you just wasn't doing the right thing.
Right.
Or, so sometimes we see racism where it doesn't exist. And I think we have to be very careful to find the racist, to find racism where it is and root it out. But when you become a hammer and everything becomes a nail, you
Mm-hmm.
start hammering things that are not racism.
Yeah, and
And
see, this is why I like having these conversations with black folk, right? Because like when I'm having these conversations with David Silverman, it was hard, right? Because he's sitting here saying there's a problem in the black community, right? Well, you ain't never been there, you have no idea what you're talking about. So these kind of things are what I would agree with, right? But you can only have these conversations. I always use this example, right? So like I grew up in a domestically violent household, right? And so like one time, a couple times, a lot of times actually, the neighbors called the cops, right? And even
yeah,
though it was good for the situation for the cops to intervene, I was mad at the neighbors for calling the
mm,
cops because it was none of their business, right? And so when you're having these kind of conversations, that's kind of what I like. It's not exactly analogous, but it is in the sense of uh, I can be like where I'm coming from, I know where you come from, where I can't have any. I know there's no malintent, right? And so
yeah,
it's easier to have these conversations. I just want to lay that premise out there.
yeah,
Um, I don't disagree with you that there is stigma amongst black folks that we don't work hard, right? Um, but I don't think that is necessarily a byproduct of who we are. I think that's a byproduct of the economic system that is currently in place. One, two, also the school systems that is currently in place, which is also a systemic problem. Because if you have a lack of good teachers, a lack of facilities with good resources, uh, you're only going to get the results that yield the 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 capital that you
true,
put into it, right?
true.
And so yeah, there may be people that don't work hard or don't, but I don't think you typecast us like that, right? I think you type
Yeah, it's not simplistic. It's a
right.
very
It's
complicated.
thousand
Yeah,
percent. And so what? And so rather than which bothered me about cats like David Silverman, he wants to harp on that. I would rather harp on the the institutions that are failing us, that is out of our control,
yeah.
and that's where I see the problem.
It's twofold. There's like a left brain, right brain type of approach to this. And for example, liberals tend to be more open minded when it comes to change and progress. Conservatives, on the other hand, say, hey, these things are working. Let's keep these things the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to a certain extent, you need both. because sometimes you could be so open minded that your brains fall out. And
Yeah,
you
I mean,
know, we,
give me an example. Give me an example of that. Like where
for
we were,
example,
where we were too open minded as a society, and to our detriment.
all right, for example, um, I think that affirmative action is a pretty good intentional thing, but it has had negative effects on people who actually end up in colleges that they don't belong, and they actually suffer because of it. And when they would have went to another college where they would have been at the top of their class, they went to a college that they necessarily didn't belong, and now they're at the bottom of their class. And many of them actually drop out of college or underperform. Now, there's studies that actually back this up. If you know who Thomas Sowell is, he studied
Yeah.
this extensively. Um, so at one moment, it's like I'm open minded enough to say, hey, black people have been disenfranchised in this country. We need to give them a leg up. But when you apply something that doesn't work, you keep with the process regardless of the actual data that's being shown that it's having a negative impact, because you would rather be morally right than effective. And the conservative tends to say, hey, um, let's pull back some because this is not working. And um, sometimes you have to. I'm not saying conservatives are right about everything. I would never say that. Like I said, there are certain liberal principles that I hold. I think that the war on drugs should just stop. We need to stop it now.
Mm-hmm.
Marijuana should be decriminalized. It should be legal, whatever the case may be. I'm 100% with that. You know, the three strike rule, like the Crown Bill, which is hurt black people significantly. But you got to have restraint. Anybody will tell you that you need to be able to sacrifice for today for your future. That's the conservative message or value that I at least believe that conservatives hold. And liberals are more like, well, we should do this now because it makes us happy. And sometimes you need to do it now. Sometimes you need to hold off. And I'm not saying all liberals, and I'm not saying all
Right. No. Right.
conservatives.
Right. I just the face was for. I just
Yeah.
don't. I don't agree with that
Yeah,
premise with
yeah.
liberals.
It's not a well known spoken thing, but it's psychologically. If you talk to most liberal people on the left, you will pick up a sense of people should be able to do whatever they want to do. For example, if this person wants to smoke crack, let them smoke crack, right?
That's not necessarily a left leaning position. Like libertarians would, and
But
most
libertarians
libertarian,
are more like,
they're right.
we don't.
They're more conservative than they are.
Yeah, for prostitution, for example,
Right.
conservatives are against prostitution. Liberals would say, if you
Well,
let me not misrepresent liberals.
maybe they conservatives may be against prostitution by the books, but you you dig into the you see these
Yeah,
conservative pastors, man. They be getting caught up. But go ahead.
yeah, true, true, true. you know, um, but on paper, conservatives tend to disagree with prostitution.
Right.
I can't speak for all liberals, but most liberals that I do speak with are for prostitution being legalized, and they have
Sure.
legitimate reasons on why they think prostitution should be legalized. It's actually
Right.
safer for the women
No
of
question.
this. Okay, the conservative argument would be, okay,
It's
you could
abhorrent.
you well, I could look. I'm not a Christian conservative, so their reasons may be. I try to look at things from a practical sense.
Right.
All right. So I asked a liberal friend that I had. I said, "Would you be okay with me as your friend paying your mama $30 for a blowjob?" Oh no, man, no, 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 no. He for prostitution though.
That's
Nah,
a
man, no, 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 no.
that's a
I get
ridiculous
it.
that's a ridiculous analogy though. That's a
It
ridiculous
is. It is.
analogy.
But we all know somebody who got a sexy mama we might be friends with, and it's like,
But if you okay,
like,
if you ask the right person, right, that question, like if you ask me that, right, if my mother's an autonomous woman and she's an adult, and if that's something that she wants to do, I'm not gonna stop her, right? I
and we
would
would
rather
hope.
I would rather have venues for her to do it where there was like STD testing and in a safe environment, so where she have to worry about getting raped, stuff like that. I would rather have that option for her if that's what she wanted to participate in, right? Like if you're talking
Mhm.
to somebody who's just like, nah, dog, not my mama. Like of course they're gonna be against it. But
That's a
overall,
legitimate. Yeah, you brought up a legitimate point. Like I said, there's legitimate points for prostitution. In most of these cases, people make pretty good arguments for both sides, and then you end up getting to the wacky area. But
I mean, we already, to be clear, we already have prostitution, legal prostitution, right? There just has to be a camera there. Like porno is illegal. It's legal. You can make a porno, and men make money off of that. That's prostitution. You're prostituting
I
yourself.
think it's only legal in certain states, though.
Sure,
Yeah,
we still deem it as not well, the porn industry is a 9 or $10 billion business. So
shit, yeah,
niggas is watching porn. They might
hell
not
yeah.
publicly advocate for it, but
I
porn is
watch
a huge
porn.
business. Yeah, of course, I do too. It's amazing. But like I'm different in the sense where I'm more I'm real far left, where it's like I believe sexual expression is important. I think the hindering of self expression actually um, um, starts to erode at who you are as a human being, and it manifests
Yeah,
itself in other ways. And I don't think that's healthy.
yeah.
So
Most mass shooters are probably sexually deprived.
I mean,
Um,
I can't make that claim, but I understand why you would say that. Yeah, I understand that.
yeah,
Okay, so so you say
but
so. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead, finish.
yeah. I was gonna say that too much of anything is not a good thing. You could drink too much water and it can kill you, right? The liberal side is we should drink water, and we should drink 75% of the water, right? And then the conservative come in and say maybe we should dial that back down to 50. And there's this pull in society between the left and the right that tries to keep us in the middle. It tries to balance us out so we don't ever go to fascism or we go to communism. Because on the extreme left, you get communism, and on the extreme right, you get fascism. And we're all battling in between these things. Now, you're making faces. Go ahead, tell me what you think.
I just don't. Okay, I think. Well, one. Okay, what would be a definition of communism?
Communism is the ideology that says that all people in society should be held to equal standards and also should be treated 100% equal. So that means, for example, this one person right here shouldn't have way more privileges than the other person. And it sounds good. It
I'm saying,
sounds really great.
is that a bad thing?
It sounds great in theory
Right.
until you add in human nature into the equation.
Okay.
We thrive off competition. We thrive off of, I want those new rims. I want my rims to be bigger than the other dude rims. And it drives what you call innovation because you
That's not
work
necessarily
harder.
true. I'm not saying it can't, but it's not true that that's the only thing that drives innovation.
It's not the only, yeah, like I said, these things are complicated. Everything's tied to multiple factors.
Right. And
But
go ahead.
in a simplistic way, most people are willing to work harder if they could get more out of the deal.
And
And when you
I actually
Right,
think that's false, right? And you look at it with a lot of these companies that like worker co-ops, right? Worker co-ops are when uh, uh, workers have a stake and a democratic stake in the share of the
yeah, in the
company,
company,
right?
yeah,
And so when you look at in today's economy, because it doesn't happen a lot, but in today's economy, what you look at is worker productivity increases, um, uh, company morale increases, and profit increases, right? Because you're not worrying about uh, my position in the job. You're not worrying about the lights being on. You're not worrying about how am I gonna make ends meet, right? It's an environment where, which is, to me, runs in opposition of what Christians say they're all about, right? And that's just it's an even funnier part. Like when you talk about conservatives and Christians, like they love a free market economy, but when they die, they want to go to a communist state. That's all heaven is. That's all heaven is, a communist state. There is no class system. It's a communist state. And so
yeah,
what we're saying is, yeah, the idea of that actually makes sense. Let's try to implement that here. And so I think, just like anything, like I'm not advocating for a communist state tomorrow. That would be civil war, right? That's not what I'm saying.
yeah,
But eventually, I don't see a reason as to why a because I do believe that there are good and great aspects of the free market, right? For sure. But I think it has developed in a way, in 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 a way that I think has hindered the brilliance of human beings, and it
yeah,
has been to the detriment of the morale of the average worker, where people don't get to enjoy their lives anymore, and they're just cogs in a wheel. And it's a sad sight to see, especially from somebody sitting from the outside in. Now that I'm
Yeah.
financially stable,
Yeah, capitalism is. Somebody said that. I think it was Churchill that said capitalism is the worst, is a bad system, but it's the best bad system we have. And in a sense, it's like the analogy that you use, or the example that you use, as far as people owning shares within the company. But it's not mandated by the government that they do that. That's something that the companies decided to do, and that's something
right,
that the workers all decided to do. Now,
right,
if you go back to, if most people were like you, go for it. But we have to account that there are a lot of people out there who just are not going to agree with you on their approach on how to get to this place that you want to get to. For example, Stalin wanted a utopia, a communist utopia. And he quickly realized that there were people in the population that was hindering that dream that he had. And what was the obvious conclusion for him? To kill him. If we
that
could just,
there's nothing
if we could,
obvious about that conclusion though.
in his eyes, it was. See, you can't account for those types. There are types out
Yeah,
there
you
who.
can. Yeah, you can. You
How
can.
so? How do you stop a Stalin type in your movement?
Well, how do you stop an American imperialist society that implements capitalism everywhere it goes?
That's why you have a left and a right to
No, I'm
to
saying
block each other out.
because people that love capitalism always dissuade the fact that, I'm not dissuade. They always omit the fact that America is responsible for murder across the world, right? And implementing democracy and capitalism.
Yeah,
And
they are.
so we love to say Stalin, we love to say Venezuela, we love to say, but like America has some blood on its hands as well. And so
Definitely.
that's why I'm not arguing for let's be a communist state, right? That's not what I'm arguing for. But what I'm my issue with capitalism is, like I said, I think it's ran its course. Like, I think we need new systems, because I don't think anybody would agree, any economist would agree, that the wage gap is exponentially increasing. It's a problem. We have to
But
address this problem. And the free market is not going to address this problem.
it's not as simple though. For example, poverty around the globe has been getting better for everyone. Most people, capitalism is helping more people than any other system that has been created has ever. And let's talk about the wage gap, for example. Yes, there is a wage gap between the filthy rich, the Jeff Bezos, and guys like me and you, for example, right? But we also got to keep an account that that's crony capitalism. That's when the companies start working with the government to get special treatment. And they start all these loopholes, and they start figuring out a ways to take advantage of the system that's set in place.
So you want regulations?
I'm for certain regulations,
Okay.
of course.
Well, the conservative aisle is not the
No,
seat you should be
that's
sitting in.
libertarian. That's libertarian now. Like, conservatives believe in a certain amount of government. They for any conservative to say no, we just want no government or low government, it's not true.
Bro,
I mean,
Trump's tax plan he just implemented, it's overwhelmingly helping
okay,
big
so we want to talk about
corporations.
Trump.
No, I'm talking about, you talking about Republican policies, right?
Yeah,
You're a conservative, and conservatives vote Republican, right?
not always, but I get you. There was a time where there were conservative Democrats. There's still a few blue dog Democrats, and some liberal Republicans. We just have very few of them, and it should go back to that way. If you're asking me, I think we need more liberal Republicans.
Sure,
And
but the point is, it is the it's the right side of the aisle saying loosen the strains on the free market. It's the left side of the aisle saying, if you do that, corporations will be corporations, and there will be greed. And
yes,
that's why the wage gap is what it is. It's because there's greed.
and also there's treaties and between countries. For example, you can go to China and you could get your iPhones made at much cheaper rates than you can make them in America. That's going to cost the American worker. But we want cheap products. We want to be able to buy an iPhone for $700 instead of 15,000 or some whatever the case of what it be. we enjoy the pleasures of cheap labor. That's something we sold out to, and it has effects on us as American workers. We have to be able to account for that. NAFTA was one of those deals. I was just watching a documentary about avocados and
Mm-hmm.
how California was producing most of the avocados in America. NAFTA opened up the avocado business to Mexico, and Mexico started to boom, and it takes away from American workers. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not as simple as just capitalism. There's also sometimes the government gets involved and they screw it up, or they give special treatment to certain companies. So I agree with the left that there needs to be regulations,
But
and I think which regulations should we be fighting for?
well, I think if you dig into the policies that I feel like you would agree with, you would start to see that it's not a democratic tenet to take jobs away from American peoples. It's not a democratic tenet to um
Take your time, brother.
no, I'm trying to figure out a way to phrase this. It's not a democratic tenet to uh have the least I mean to have the least amount of regulations so the free market can run wild to implement the agreed upon the people. It's not that's not what it
Yeah,
I think you're more
but
liberal in this sense than you think you
yeah,
are.
I usually trip people up because most people are used to arguing with the kind of conservative that you might see on Twitter, or for example, people who are like, "Yeah, we need to just open up the free market, and we just need to." It's not. Most people have a misconception on what conservative values really are versus what liberal values are. I try not to straw man liberals or progressives, for example. So if me and you are discussing a topic, I'm going to discuss it on your terms, on what you mean by progressive and
Right.
what you mean by liberal.
That's fair.
And I'm gonna be honest, there's a lot of tribalism going on. Most people who might consider themselves to be conservative or liberal, they're probably just going along with whatever the party is at the moment. But there are true philosophical ideas and policies, or that conservatives should adhere to, which they're not. And I try to argue from more of a textbook conservative than just, well, Trump said this or the party said this and this is what we're going for. And I just don't see it having to be that way.
Well, sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, I would agree with that. But it's still so when I'm listening to you talk, I still don't hear a somebody that should vote for a Republican. It doesn't make any sense to me. This stuff that you're espousing
Yeah.
doesn't make me feel like, oh, he would vote for a Republican. Like what because it's not economics. Like we would you agree with that? Like
uh, as far as economics go, I think Democrats go too far sometimes when it comes to regulations. Um, for example, let's take the Green New Deal, or for example, Biden's plan as far as fracking or whatever the case may be. America could drive electric cars all day. We could go to windmills, we can go to solar energy, we could completely stop all oil and gas, period, right? It would not really make a significant difference in the world when it came to climate change.
not true.
It would make maybe, I believe the numbers are around maybe like, I don't want to quote the wrong number, but China, India, Russia, they put out enough carbon into the atmosphere to where America would not stop the tide of climate change. We wouldn't be able to do enough to stop the situation that we're in.
But nobody makes that claim.
I know, but what I'm saying is when the Democrats are out here making it seem like we have to do all this to stop climate change, but they're not telling you that, hey, there's nothing America could do to stop climate change.
That's not true.
I'm willing to hear it. I've been waiting for a legitimate answer on how to stop China, India,
You
Russia,
can't stop China, India. You can't stop. That's ridiculous. That's nonsense.
and
What you
they
do is
contribute to
would you
most of.
sure, but would you not agree that America is seen as a global power
We
and
are.
that
Yes.
and if we set the precedent on righting the wrongs that the Industrial Revolution started, that we can start to chip away at what we need to do to become uh uh what is it? I think it's net.
And, uh,
I think
yeah,
it's net
I
zero.
forget the
Our
term.
carbon
Yeah.
production is I think it's net zero.
Yeah.
You don't do you think that we can set that precedent?
I honestly don't. If anything, I think it'll put us at a disadvantage on the world stage.
Okay,
China
so
is our
okay, let's say
competitor.
that's the case. Let's say that's the case. Let's say it puts us at a disadvantage of the world stage. What disadvantage does it put us at if our carbon output is net zero?
Financially, economically, foreign and domestically, it would hurt us. It would cost so much money to do that in the first place. We would probably almost ruin our economy to try to switch over to that kind of program. And even if you say we did it over the next 10 years, it would cost us so much. And you talk about China, who's competing against us. We're
The
literally
goal is
probably
2050. It's not 2030. The Green New Deal, one, Joe Biden is not an advocate for the Green New Deal. That's a progressive document, right? And it's not even it's not a piece of legislation, right? It's just an idea. And so that's just a template of what we think that should happen. It's negotiation, right? And anytime you're in a negotiation, you go to the low. Like if I feel like I'm worth $50 million, right? I'm gonna say $60 million at the negotiating table. So where they come
yes.
back and they go 30, and then I go 55, right? And then we meet somewhere in the middle because that's what politics is a negotiation.
But when
So
it comes to climate change, you can't really negotiate. Either we need to save the
you don't
planet or
have
we
to.
can't.
No, because people on the side of the aisle that you are thinking about voting for, some even the president of the United States doesn't even think it's an issue, right? Like they don't believe the science, and so because that's the case, like you have this stonewall in Congress. Like people don't think it's an issue, right? Because I think we live in an inherently scientifically illiterate country. Like
Yeah, I agree. You spoke about education earlier, and that's something that I wanted to touch on, but we'll get there. As far as the people that I'm thinking about voting for, honestly, I'm undecided at the moment. Um,
that's wild to me.
yeah. Like, I'm not married to my leaders. I'm not married to any side of the fence.
No,
Um,
not that part. What's wild to me is at this point in the election, like at this and you being, I assume you talk about politics on your channel, right?
yeah.
At this point, like what can sway you to either side of that? Like it's not a debate, right? It's not a like what can sway you if you're on the side at this
I
point?
don't. There are certain issues that I just don't even know where the candidates stand. For example, they asked Joe Biden about whether he would pack the court or not, and he won't give an answer. And I get that he's trying to say, well, if I give an answer, then they'll make it about whatever answer I gave. But that's with every issue. I mean, it, like you can't just say I'm not going to answer the question. It's like if you're not going to do it, why won't you just say I won't do it? I don't understand the hesitancy when it comes to that. That bothers me, because I don't even know where he stands about packing the Supreme Court when he gets elected. Yeah, that's a serious issue that we need to
You can't just
address.
pack the Supreme Court.
Well, not just by himself, but we're voting for senators and we're going to vote for a House. If he gets the House and the Senate, I want to know where he stands
Of course,
on these issues.
but of course, what president has not tried to implement the party line in Congress? That's always going to happen.
Yeah, but I don't know which way he stands.
Of
At least
course
I'll
he.
know.
Okay, I'll speak. Of course he's going to try to. Of course, like why wouldn't you? I don't understand. Like why wouldn't you?
I mean, the Republicans aren't. They're not trying to pack the courts. It's been nine. Trump is probably just nominated his third one, but he's not trying to add more justices to the court.
I'm gonna I'm gonna leave that right there because I honestly haven't done enough
Yeah, that's
my due
fair.
diligence on it.
That's fair.
But from what I think I know, I think that's false. But I can't speak on that until I do more research on it. So like,
Yeah,
okay, you don't know if Joe Biden's gonna pack the courts, right?
yeah.
What else?
Joe Biden has threatened to go after the gun manufacturers. and allow people to sue the gun manufacturers. For example, if you have another mass shooting, that means you could go after the gun manufacturers and sue them. If you open up the floodgates to suing the gun manufacturers, it really
My
goes
bad.
after the Second Amendment.
My daughter,
You're
my
fine.
daughter. She was gonna scream if I didn't pick her up, bro.
She, oh, she's so cute.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. If you go after the gun manufacturers, then it really makes it a difficult job to be a gun manufacturer because you could be sued at any time if somebody uses your weapon in the wrong way, and that will
Give me
destroy.
1 second, bro. I'm gonna give it to her mother.
Yeah,
I apologize, bro. This
you're fine, bro. You're
damn.
good.
Yeah, yeah, come on, sweetie. Hold on. 1 second, y'all. Hold on.
All right.
Man, my bad, dog.
You're good. You're good. Oh, we got people watching.
Yeah, it's live. Yeah,
I'm,
it's live. I'm on Twitch. So what I do is like I stream on Twitch and then I'll cut it up to YouTube.
oh, cool, cool. I ain't go live. I'm a little too flimsy for that.
Nah, you good, man. All right. So you were saying Joe Biden wants to take away or wants to be able to
He-
sue the gun manufacturer.
yeah, he wants to be able to allow people, citizens, to sue the gun manufacturers if I take one of their guns and I go commit a mass shooting, or if I go kill a few people or whatever the case may be. You can go after the gun manufacturers and sue them, and that opens up the gun manufacturers to all kind of legal, expenses that could potentially shut them down or run them out of business, which effectively will hinder the rights to keep and bear arms because there
Come
won't be
on, man.
anybody around to make arms.
Come on, my guy. You really think that's a thing? That's such a flimsy argument. I think you know
But he
that
made
shit.
the claim. He made the claim. I'm
But
just
there's so many leaps that you just made, dog. There's so many leaps that you just made.
explain it to me then
People are
because
going to sue the gun manufacturers, are going to hold them liable, right? Like it would have to go through court, and even if one of these cases get through court, it would have to go to the Supreme Court, right? And we have a lot of regulations in place already that some people are not liable for, like shit like roller coaster rides, shit like that, right? Like you
yeah,
don't go shut down the venue park because somebody falls off a roller coaster ride, like shit like that, like. It would end up going to the Supreme Court. And I'm not very knowledgeable about guns because I don't give a fuck about guns. But like, there's no way in America that a lawsuit from somebody misusing a gun is going to shut down gun manufacturing. And I'm not
it's
even
the
I don't even know about Joe Biden's claim. I don't even care about his claim, right? I'm just talking about the
it's the onslaught of lawsuits. Is there's gonna be one lawsuit is nothing, but if you go, let's say a guy goes into a school and shoots 12 kids, right? Each one of those 12 kids' families are going to sue the gun manufacturer. And that could take years of legal work and legal expenses. And let's say somebody else in the meantime does the same thing. Eventually, you'll have so many lawsuits against the gun manufacturers. They'll be fighting so many cases in court, it'll make them bankrupt. I mean, I'm not speaking from just a hypothetical situation. They've already just sued the gun manufacturers that went to the Supreme Court recently. But the reason that law was set into place is so that it wouldn't bankrupt the gun manufacturers. For example, if I go buy a hammer from Home Depot and I go bash somebody's brains in, how is Home Depot liable for me using their hammer to kill somebody?
Well, see, and I don't, and what you're saying is Joe Biden's claim is, and I haven't heard anything about this because like I'm so uninterested in guns. But what you're saying is Joe Biden's claim is that if somebody misuses a gun, meaning like a mass shooting or something like that, I assume is what he's talking about, right? If
Mm-hmm.
somebody does a mass shooting, that victims of the mass shooting can then sue the gun manufacturer.
Yes, he said
And
it on the debate stage.
I mean, I don't see
Now,
how that would even
if you're not
pass.
a gun guy, I don't. We don't have to get deep into the whole gun issue. I'm a gun guy. I care about my Second Amendment. I like guns. I like shooting them. That's an issue for me. On the other side of Trump, there are things that Trump does that I don't like. I get that there is this big movement of people who just love Trump no matter what he does and says. I just put out a video on my channel criticizing Trump's poor debate performance the other night against Joe Biden. I think it was not classy at all. He looked horrible, So I'm not one of those Trumpers who's just going to defend Trump at all costs. But there are certain issues that really causes me to wonder, hmm, how does this affect the things that I value and care about? I'm not really a big abortion kind of guy. That's not really one of my issues. But I do want to get back to the black issues. Uh, let's not veer off because I want to get back to the
Yeah, right.
racist.
Sure, sure. Let's do it.
Yeah. So David Silman was making the claim as far as he doesn't care if some thug is killed. I don't want to misquote him. Um, but in a general sense, he was saying that why should he care if George Floyd is murdered by the cops or whatever the case may be, right?
Right.
I tend to disagree with that form of language, um, simply for the fact that the police job is not to kill anyone. The police job is to respond and to prevent crime, to respond to crime and prevent crime. You don't kill somebody because I don't care if you could think of some horrible things people can do, right? But your job is to apprehend them and let the legal system deal with them, right? And I don't see why this situation has become a conservative versus liberal or a left versus right issue. I think most people on the right agree that what happened to George Floyd was horrific and that there needs to be consequences to that officer who did that. I don't know how it became politicized in a way. I think, and I'm speaking from my personal observation, so I may be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think where conservatives started to jump off the train was when people started going to defund the police, to rhetoric of that sort, that the whole system is racist or whatever that case. I think that's when conservatives jumped off of the ship.
Yeah, no racist likes to be told they're racist.
Now, yeah, that's what we should get into because I'm a conservative and there are things that I see that are racist and there are things that I don't think is racist. So define systematic racism for me. That way I know what your definition of systematic racism is.
Any system or institution set in place that disproportionately has negative effects on a certain community.
Okay. And your goal is to try to fix that system to make sure that it's not systematically racist, correct?
To make sure that the byproduct of the institution has proportionate levels of like output.
So you like if the population of black people is 12 to 13%, then they should be equally represented in any statistic that deals with the system. And for example, so like if you say that black people are disproportionately killed by police officers, but
Yeah.
those numbers don't match the population of black people, so therefore there must be something wrong with it, right? Am
Yeah,
I am
there's
I
there's a discrepancy. Yeah.
Okay, I agree with you. There is a discrepancy. Based on the population of black people in America, they're disproportionately killed by police officers. We could agree on that.
Yeah.
Now, let's branch off to a few factors that may contribute to that. We could agree that there are police officers who are racist.
Yep.
Can we also agree that black young men between the ages of, I believe, 15 to 35 commit majority of the violent crimes in America?
I will lend that to your argument. Yeah.
Okay.